Dr. Sarah Ahmed yawned as she peered into the large telescope at the city observatory. It was just another quiet night shift, or so she thought. As she adjusted the lens, something caught her eye. A strange, flickering light moved across the sky in a way she had never seen before. "That's odd," she muttered, rubbing her eyes. But when she looked again, the light was still there, dancing in the darkness of space. Sarah's heart began to race. She quickly checked the telescope's settings, making sure everything was working correctly. It was. Whatever she was seeing was real. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone and dialed her colleague, Dr. James Chen. "James, you need to see this," she said urgently when he answered. I think I've found something." Within an hour, the observatory was buzzing with activity. Scientists from various departments huddled around screens and telescopes, all trying to make sense of Sarah's discovery. "It's not a star, and it's definitely not a satellite," James said, his voice filled with excitement and a hint of fear. "These objects are moving with purpose." As dawn broke, news of the strange sightings spread like wildfire. Observatories around the world confirmed similar findings. The sky was filled with objects that defied explanation. In Washington, D.C., President Emily Rodriguez sat in the Oval Office, surrounded by her top advisors. The atmosphere was tense as they listened to reports from NASA and the military. "Madam President," General Mark Thompson said, his face grim, "we believe these are alien spacecraft, and there are thousands of them." President Rodriguez leaned back in her chair, trying to process this earth-shattering information. "What are their intentions?" she asked. "We don't know yet," replied Dr. Lisa Patel, the head of NASA. "But given their numbers and technology, if they're hostile, we're in serious trouble." As governments around the world grappled with the situation, panic began to spread among the public. Social media exploded with theories and fears. People rushed to stores, stocking up on supplies as if preparing for the end of the world. In a small town in Kansas, farmer John Miller stood in his field, staring up at the sky with his old binoculars. His wife, Mary, stood beside him, clutching his arm. "John, what do you think is happening?" she asked, her voice trembling. John shook his head slowly. "I don't know, Mary, but whatever it is, we'll face it together, just like we always have." Back in New York, Sarah Ahmed hadn't slept in 48 hours. She and her team worked tirelessly, analyzing every bit of data they could gather about the alien ships. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a graph on her computer screen. "Their energy readings are off the charts. The technology they possess, it's beyond anything we've ever imagined." As she spoke, the lights in the lab flickered and died. Outside, car alarms began blaring, and in the distance, they could hear the wail of sirens. "What's happening?" James asked, fear evident in his voice. Sarah rushed to the window. In the sky, the alien ships were no longer hiding. They hung over the city like massive dark clouds, pulsing with an eerie light. "I think," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper, "they're making their move." Around the world, similar scenes unfolded. The aliens, no longer content to observe, began to make their presence known. Communication systems went haywire, power grids failed, and chaos reigned in the streets. In London, Paris, Tokyo, and countless other cities, people looked to the sky with a mixture of awe and terror. The moment humanity had long speculated about had finally arrived. They were not alone in the universe, and their visitors did not seem to come in peace. As night fell, President Rodriguez addressed the nation and the world. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her concern. "My fellow Americans and citizens of the world," she began, "today we face the greatest challenge in human history. But I want you to remember this. We are strong. We are resilient. And together, we will face whatever comes next." As her words echoed across the globe, humanity stood on the brink of a new era. The aliens had planned to crush them, but they were about to learn that humanity would not go down without a fight. The days following the great battle were filled with both joy and sorrow. Across the globe, people emerged from hiding, looking up at skies now free of alien ships. The invasion was over, but the world would never be the same. In Washington, D.C., President Rodriguez stood amidst the rubble of the White House, addressing a crowd of weary but hopeful citizens. "We have won our freedom," she declared, her voice strong despite her exhaustion. "But now we face an even greater challenge: rebuilding our world." The cost of victory had been high. Cities lay in ruins, millions had lost their lives, and the global infrastructure was in shambles. Yet in the face of these challenges, the spirit that had defeated the aliens now turned towards reconstruction. Dr. Sarah Ahmed, hailed as one of the heroes of the resistance, led a team of scientists examining the downed alien ships. "Their technology is incredible," she marveled, picking up a piece of alien metal. "If we can understand it, we might be able to solve many of our world's problems." In England, Margaret Thorne's programming language became the foundation for a new, more secure global communication network. At 80 years old, she found herself teaching at a hastily established school for technology. "The aliens tried to send us back to the Stone Age," she told her students with a twinkle in her eye. "Instead, they've pushed us to create something even better than before." Yum Priya Patel, now a symbol of hope for millions, traveled the world, helping communities rebuild. Her flag communication system evolved into a new form of sign language, bridging gaps between different cultures and languages. "We're all one people now," she said, standing in the ruins of Sydney. "We fought together, and now we'll rebuild together." The family of John Miller, who had sacrificed himself to destroy the alien mothership, received a hero's welcome in their small Kansas town. His wife, Mary, wiped away tears as she addressed her neighbors. "John always said that a farmer's job is to nurture life," she said. "Now it's up to all of us to nurture our planet back to health." As months passed, an unexpected benefit of the invasion emerged. The alien attack had united humanity in a way never seen before. Old conflicts and borders seemed petty in the face of what they had endured together. A new era of global cooperation dawned. In Geneva, the old site of the Resistance Summit became the headquarters for a new global government. Representatives from every nation gathered to shape the future of Earth. President Rodriguez, elected as the first global leader, stood at the podium. "We faced extinction," she said, her words broadcast to every corner of the planet. "But instead, we found our strength. Now we must use that strength not just to rebuild, but to create a better world than the one we lost." The reconstruction effort brought new innovations. Sarah Ahmed's team reverse-engineered alien technology to create clean, unlimited energy sources. Margaret Thorne's students developed AI systems to help coordinate global resources. Priya Patel's communication methods helped bridge language barriers in international projects. But it wasn't just about technology. The spirit of unity that had risen during the invasion continued to grow. People from different countries and cultures worked side by side, sharing knowledge and resources. The lines between nations began to blur as humanity increasingly saw itself as one global community. 1 year after the final battle, a memorial was unveiled in the center of New York City. It was a simple structure, a globe held up by hands of all colors. At its base, a plaque read, "To those we lost, and to the strength we found, humanity stands united." As the sun set on this new world, Dr. Sarah Ahmed stood before the memorial, lost in thought. A small child tugged at her lab coat. "Dr. Ahmed," the child asked, "will the aliens ever come back?" Sarah knelt down, meeting the child's eyes. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but if they do, they'll find a humanity stronger and more united than ever before. We've learned that together, we can face anything." As stars began to twinkle in the sky, the same stars that had once brought such terror, Sarah smiled. The aliens had planned to crush humanity. Instead, they had forged it into something stronger, more resilient, and more beautiful than ever before. It was, truly, a new dawn for Earth. A week had passed since the world went dark. The initial shock had worn off, and a new rhythm of life was emerging. In cities and towns across the globe, people were adapting to a world without modern technology. In Washington, D.C., President Rodriguez stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, addressing a crowd that stretched as far as the eye could see. Her voice, amplified by a hand-cranked megaphone, rang out clear and strong. "My fellow humans," she began, "we have been knocked down, but we are not defeated. Our strength lies not in our machines, but in our hearts and minds. Together, we will overcome this challenge." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing across the National Mall. Among them stood Dr. Lisa Patel, who had left the White House bunker to see the speech in person. As she looked around at the determined faces, she felt a surge of hope. Meanwhile, in New York, Dr. Sarah Ahmed had made a breakthrough. Working by candlelight, she had noticed a pattern in the alien signals that she hadn't seen before. "James," she called excitedly to her colleague, "I think I found something. Look at these frequencies. They're not random. They're like a language." James rushed over, his eyes widening as he looked at Sarah's notes. "You're right," he breathed. "But how can we use this?" Sarah's eyes sparkled with determination. "If we can understand their language, maybe we can communicate with them, or even better, disrupt their own systems." Across the Atlantic, in a small village in England, an unexpected hero emerged. 80-year-old Margaret Thorne, a retired computer programmer, had dusted off her old mechanical typewriter and was teaching young people how to use it. "In my day," she told her eager students, "we didn't need fancy computers to write code. We can do the same now. We'll create a new programming language, one the aliens won't understand." In India, young Priya Patel had become a messenger for her village. Running from house to house, she delivered news and coordinated efforts to maintain the village's food and water supply. Her speed and memory made her invaluable in this new low-tech world. Back in Kansas, farmer John Miller had gathered his neighbors. Together, they were developing new farming techniques that didn't rely on modern machinery. "We'll grow our food the old-fashioned way," John declared, wiping sweat from his brow. "Those aliens might control our machines, but they can't control the earth and our own two hands." As humanity adapted, the aliens seemed to grow frustrated. Their ships still hovered menacingly, but without technology to control, their influence was waning. In some cities, people even reported seeing alien craft flying erratically, as if confused. In the White House bunker, now lit by a mix of candles and newly developed safe bioluminescent lamps, President Rodriguez met with her advisors. "We're getting reports from around the world," General Thompson said, pointing to a large paper map spread out on the table. "People are fighting back in their own ways. We're seeing a global resistance forming." Dr. Patel nodded excitedly. "And not just resistance. Innovation. Look at these reports of new inventions, new ways of doing things without relying on our old technology. We're evolving, Madam President." President Rodriguez smiled, the first real smile in days. "Then it's time we take the next step. We need to coordinate these efforts, bring together our best minds." She turned to her team. "I want a global summit. No technology, no fancy conference rooms. We'll meet in the open, under their ships if we have to. Show them we're not afraid." As word of the summit spread, carried by runners, riders, and even carrier pigeons, a sense of excitement began to build. In labs, workshops, and kitchen tables around the world, people worked furiously, preparing their ideas to share. In New York, Sarah Ahmed packed her notes, ready to present her findings on the alien language. In England, Margaret Thorne typed out her new programming language, her arthritic fingers flying over the keys. In India, Priya Patel prepared to represent her village, her young mind full of ideas for low-tech solutions. As the day of the summit approached, a new feeling began to spread across the world. It wasn't just determination or resilience anymore. It was hope. Hope that together, humanity could not just survive this invasion, but emerge stronger than ever. The aliens had planned to crush humans, but they had inadvertently sparked a revolution. Humanity was united as never before, standing strong in the face of adversity. And they were ready to take back their world. The day of the global summit arrived. In a vast open field outside of Geneva, Switzerland, representatives from every nation gathered. The alien ships loomed overhead, a constant reminder of the threat they faced. President Rodriguez stood on a simple wooden platform, addressing the crowd. Today, she declared, her voice carried by a network of people repeating her words, we share our knowledge, our innovations, and our hope. Together, we will find a way to defeat this invasion. The summit was unlike any before it. Without PowerPoint presentations or microphones, people shared ideas through demonstrations, hand-drawn diagrams, and passionate speeches. Dr. Sarah Ahmed took the stage, holding up large charts showing her analysis of the alien signals. Their language is based on mathematical patterns, she explained. If we can replicate these patterns, we might be able to communicate with them, or even confuse their systems. Excitement rippled through the crowd. This was the first real chance they had to fight back against the alien technology. In another corner of the field, Margaret Thorne from England showcased her new programming language. It's based on old punch card systems, she explained to a group of young coders. The aliens won't be able to interpret or corrupt it. Meanwhile, Priya Patel, the young girl from India, shared her village's methods for coordinating without technology. We use a system of colored flags, she demonstrated. Each color and position means something different. We can send complex messages across long distances. As ideas were shared and plans formed, a sense of hope began to grow. Humanity was pooling its collective knowledge and creativity, coming up with solutions that the aliens couldn't have anticipated. But the aliens weren't idle. As the summit progressed, their ships began to move, descending lower over the gathering. General Thompson rushed to President Rodriguez. Madam President, he said urgently, we think they're preparing to attack the summit. The president's face hardened with determination. Then we'll just have to move faster, she said. Get everyone working on implementing these ideas now. The field erupted into action. Scientists and engineers huddled together, rapidly prototyping devices based on Sarah's alien signal analysis. Coders worked with Margaret, transcribing her new language onto whatever materials they could find. Paper, cloth, even tree bark. In the center of it all, Farmer John Miller from Kansas had an idea. If their ships use some kind of electromagnetic field, he said, maybe we can disrupt it. He quickly gathered a team and began constructing a massive coil using scavenged metal and hand-wound copper wire. It was a giant version of an old high school science experiment. A homemade EMP device. As the alien ships drew closer, tension mounted. The makeshift EMP device wasn't ready yet, and people looked to the sky with fear. Suddenly, Priya had an idea. The flags, she shouted. We can use them to distract the aliens. In a flurry of activity, people began waving flags in the complex patterns Priya had taught them. From above, it must have looked like a strange, choreographed dance. The alien ships paused, as if confused by the unexpected display. This gave John and his team the time they needed. It's ready, he shouted. With a tremendous effort, the crowd turned the hand crank on the giant coil. A visible wave of energy pulsed out across the field. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to falter. Some drifted off course, while others slowly descended to the ground. A cheer went up from the crowd. For the first time since the invasion began, they had struck a blow against the aliens. But their celebration was short-lived. While some ships were affected, others remained operational. And now, they were angry. A harsh, grating sound filled the air, the first audible communication from the aliens. Though no one could understand the words, the meaning was clear. This meant war. As the unaffected alien ships began to power up what could only be weapons, President Rodriguez's voice rang out over the chaos. "This is not the end," she shouted. "This is only the beginning of our fight. We've proven we can hurt them. Now, let's show them what humanity can really do." As the crowd scattered, running to implement their plans and spread the word of their first victory, a new chapter in the invasion began. The aliens had planned to crush humanity, but they had only succeeded in awakening a sleeping giant. The real battle was about to begin. The world held its breath as the alien ships hovered silently over major cities. For 3 days, they made no move, no sound. People huddled in their homes, glued to their TV screens, waiting for news. On the 4th day, it came. Every screen on Earth, televisions, computers, even digital billboards, suddenly flickered to life. The image that appeared made millions gasp in unison. It was an alien. The creature had grayish-blue skin, large, dark eyes, and no visible mouth. When it spoke, the words appeared as subtitles in every language. "People of Earth," the message read, "we are the Zorax. Your planet now belongs to us. Surrender your governments and submit to our rule, or face extinction." In the White House Situation Room, President Rodriguez watched the broadcast with her advisors. The room was silent as the message ended. General Thompson was the first to speak. "Madam President, we need to respond with force. Show them we won't be intimidated." But Dr. Lisa Patel shook her head. "We don't stand a chance against their technology. We need to negotiate." President Rodriguez stood up, her face determined. "We will not surrender," she said firmly. "But we won't start a war we can't win. I'm going to address them directly." Within an hour, a makeshift stage was set up on the White House lawn. News cameras from around the world focused on the podium as President Rodriguez stepped up to speak. To the leaders of the Zorax, she began, her voice steady. "We hear your demand, but we cannot accept it. Earth is our home. We have built our civilizations here over thousands of years. We will not give up our freedom without a fight." She paused, then continued, "However, we are open to peaceful coexistence. We invite you to engage in diplomatic talks. Let us find a way to share knowledge and resources that can benefit both our species." As she finished, the world waited. Minutes ticked by with no response. Then, suddenly, the alien face reappeared on screens worldwide. "Your defiance is noted," the subtitles read. "Your primitive species clearly needs convincing." With that, the transmission cut off. For a moment, there was silence. Then, chaos erupted. In New York, Dr. Sarah Ahmed was in her lab when the city's power grid suddenly failed. Outside, she could hear people screaming. She rushed to the window and saw the alien ship above releasing smaller craft that descended towards the streets. "They're attacking," she yelled to her colleagues. "We need to get out of here." Similar scenes unfolded in cities across the globe. The aliens didn't use traditional weapons. Instead, they deployed devices that disrupted electrical systems and communications. Cars stopped working, phones went dead, and panic spread rapidly. In a small village in India, young Priya Patel watched in horror as her father's tractor suddenly died in the middle of their field. In the distance, she could see a strange, shimmering wave moving across the landscape, leaving silence in its wake. Back in Washington, President Rodriguez and her team scrambled to respond. But with communications down, coordinating a global defense seemed impossible. "We need to get word out to our military bases," General Thompson urged. "We have to fight back." But how? With modern technology crippled, humanity found itself thrown back to a pre-digital age. In London, people began using bicycle couriers to send messages. In Tokyo, old radio sets were dug out of attics and basements. As night fell, the world was in disarray. The aliens had made their move, but it wasn't the all-out assault many had feared. Instead, they had crippled humanity's infrastructure, leaving people scared, confused, and cut off from each other. In her lab, illuminated by emergency lights, Dr. Sarah Ahmed worked feverishly. "There has to be a way to counteract their technology," she muttered, poring over data from before the blackout. Across the world, in labs, garages and workshops, other scientists and engineers were doing the same. The aliens had planned to crush humanity's spirit with this attack. But as the long night wore on, a spark of defiance began to grow. Humanity had been knocked down, but they weren't out of the fight yet. The real battle was just beginning. As dawn broke on the third day of the alien invasion, the world woke to an eerie silence. The initial panic had subsided, replaced by a tense calm. People emerged from their homes, squinting at the alien ships that still loomed overhead. In Washington, D.C., President Rodriguez sat in an emergency bunker, surrounded by military leaders and scientists. The room was lit by old-fashioned oil lamps, a stark reminder of how the aliens had crippled their technology. "What's our status?" the president asked, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. General Thompson stepped forward. "Madam President, we've managed to get some old radio equipment working. Reports are coming in from around the world. The aliens haven't engaged in direct combat, but—" He paused, his face grim. "But they're doing something far worse." Dr. Lisa Patel, who had been poring over reports, spoke up. "They're hacking us, Madam President. Not just our computers, but our entire digital infrastructure. They're in everything." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. In the modern world, nearly everything relied on digital systems, and now those systems belong to the aliens. Meanwhile, in New York, Dr. Sarah Ahmed made a startling discovery. She had been analyzing the alien signals when she noticed something strange. "James," she called to her colleague, "look at this pattern. It's not just disrupting our tech. It's rewriting it." James peered at the old computer screen, his eyes widening. "My God," he whispered. "They're turning our own technology against us." Across the globe, the effects of this hidden attack began to surface. In Tokyo, traffic lights went haywire, causing massive pileups. In London, bank accounts suddenly emptied, leading to riots outside financial institutions. In Rio de Janeiro, water treatment plants shut down, leaving millions without clean water. Back in the small town in Kansas, farmer John Miller noticed something odd about his crops. The automated irrigation system had gone into overdrive, flooding his fields. As he sloshed through the mud to shut it off manually, he saw his neighbors facing similar problems. "They're not just attacking our cities," he realized. "They're going after our food supply too." In India, young Priya Patel watched in horror as her father's smartphone, which they had been using as a flashlight, suddenly sparked and caught fire. All around their village, similar scenes unfolded as devices thought to be dead came to life with malicious intent. As chaos spread, humanity began to adapt. Old skills, long forgotten in the digital age, were suddenly valuable again. Messengers on horseback carried news between towns. Hand-cranked radios became lifelines. People turned to books for information instead of Google. In her lab, Dr. Sarah Ahmed worked tirelessly to understand the alien code. "If we can decode their signals," she told her team, "we might be able to fight back." But the aliens were always one step ahead. Just as Sarah thought she was making progress, her equipment would glitch, erasing hours of work. In the White House bunker, President Rodriguez made a difficult decision. "We need to go dark," she announced to her advisors. "Shut down everything. Every computer, every phone, every electronic device. It's the only way to stop their influence from spreading." The order went out, carried by runners and signal fires. Around the world, people pulled plugs and removed batteries. The silence that followed was deafening. As night fell on the third day, humanity found itself thrust back in time. No internet, no phones, no modern conveniences. But in this darkness, something unexpected happened. People began to talk to each other, face to face. Neighbors who had never spoken now gathered around campfires, sharing food and stories. In New York, Sarah Ahmed looked out her window at the star-filled sky, no longer obscured by light pollution. "We've lost so much," she mused. "But maybe we've gained something too." As she turned back to her work, now done by candlelight with pencil and paper, a new determination filled her. The aliens thought they had crushed humanity's spirit by attacking their technology, but they had underestimated the human ability to adapt, to persevere. The war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. And humanity, stripped of its technological crutches, was rediscovering its true strength. In the weeks following the summit, a global resistance movement took shape. The world had seen that the aliens could be hurt, and hope spread like wildfire. Dr. Sarah Ahmed worked tirelessly in a makeshift lab in New York. She had made a breakthrough in understanding the alien language. "It's not just mathematics," she explained to her team. "It's a code based on quantum states. If we can replicate it, we might be able to confuse their entire fleet." Meanwhile, in England, Margaret Thorne's new programming language had been adopted worldwide. Resistance fighters used it to coordinate attacks without fear of alien interception. Margaret, despite her age, found herself leading a global team of coders. "Who would have thought," she chuckled as she typed away, "that my old skills would save the world?" In India, young Priya Patel had become a symbol of hope. Her flag communication system had been refined and was now used across Asia to coordinate movements of people and resources. Priya traveled from village to village, teaching and inspiring others. "We may not have fancy weapons," she told a group of children, "but we have our minds and our spirit. That's what the aliens can't defeat." Farmer John Miller's homemade EMP device had been replicated and improved upon. Resistance cells around the world now had a weapon against the alien technology. But the aliens were adapting, shielding their ships against the pulses. The alien retaliation was fierce. They launched attacks on major cities, using weapons that disintegrated buildings in seconds. But each attack only strengthened humanity's resolve. In the ruins of Paris, a group of chefs-turned-soldiers used their knowledge of chemistry to develop a new type of smoke bomb that could confuse alien sensors. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes shared their ancient knowledge of the land, helping resistance fighters to hide and strike from unexpected places. President Rodriguez, now operating from a mobile command center, received reports from around the world. "The aliens are planning something big," General Thompson warned. "Our scouts have seen their ships gathering over the Pacific Ocean." Dr. Lisa Patel, who had been analyzing alien behavior patterns, spoke up. "I think I know what they're doing. They're going to try to trigger a massive tsunami to wipe out coastal cities worldwide." The news spread quickly through the resistance network. Humanity had to act fast. Sarah Ahmed's team had finished their quantum signal device. "It's ready," she announced, "but we need to get it close to their main ship to broadcast the signal." John Miller stepped forward. "I think I can help with that," he said. He had been working on retrofitting old crop-dusting planes to fly without electronic systems. "We can get your device up there." As the alien fleet gathered, humanity prepared for its most daring mission yet. A squadron of crop dusters, led by John Miller himself, took to the skies. They flew low and slow, avoiding alien detection. On the ground, resistance fighters launched coordinated EMP attacks, creating a diversion. Priya's flag system signaled the movements of the alien ships, guiding the squadron. As they approached the alien mothership, the aliens finally spotted them. Energy weapons lit up the sky, but the simple, mechanical planes were harder to hit than the aliens expected. John's plane, carrying Sarah's device, broke through the alien defenses. "Now or never, Doc," he shouted into his radio. Sarah, watching from the ground, activated the device remotely. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly, the alien ships began to move erratically. Some collided with each other, while others fell from the sky. The quantum signal had worked, scrambling the aliens' communications and control systems. As the alien fleet fell into chaos, Cheers erupted around the world. But it wasn't over yet. The alien mothership, though damaged, was powering up its main weapon, a cannon capable of splitting the Earth's crust. "We need to take it out now," President Rodriguez ordered. In a final, desperate move, John Miller flew his plane directly at the cannon. "Been nice knowing you all," he radioed before crashing into the weapon. The resulting explosion was visible from the ground. The mothership, its key weapon destroyed, began to fall from the sky. As the dust settled, an eerie silence fell. The alien invasion, which had threatened to destroy humanity, had been stopped. But at what cost? And what would happen next? As the world celebrated its victory, new questions arose. The fight was over, but humanity's greatest challenge was just beginning.